Before we get started on talking about the plugin I'm going to introduce today, I want to touch on whether a photography website even needs an SEO plugin. The short answer is yes. And the plugin I'm introducing today won't add any unnecessary bulk to your website. It won't nag you about free versions. It's basically a why the hell not addition to your website. In the absolute worst case, it won't make any difference. The long answer? Well, that's what we are going to be talking about today. If you've just started creating your own WordPress website, you've surely come across one of the many SEO plugins there are out there. There's the all-in-one SEO pack, Rank Math, the Framework SEO, and good old Yoast. That last one might sound familiar to you. Just about every beginner guide recommends that you use Yoast, and I'm not making any accusations here, but I don't believe that's purely based on the performance you get out of Yoast. Yoast has been around for an eternity, and with over 5 million active installations, it's got more than double the user base of its closest competitor. When I started out, I installed Yoast on my websites because all of the beginner guides had been recommended it, and it seemed to me that everybody loved using Yoast. Well, I didn't like it at all. Yoast would constantly bug me about installing the paid version, and I also didn't think the interface was very intuitive at all. And another thing that really drove me nuts was that they would hijack my WordPress backend to display big banner adverts advertising things like Black Friday sales for their product, not for others. And just to take a look if things had actually changed, I installed Yoast again and just have a look at this dashboard. It seems to me that most of the space is taken up by ads for their paid service. And just for comparison, here's the dashboard of one of their competitors. In fact, it's the one we're going to be using today, and I don't see any mention of a pro version here. The final nail in the coffin for me came when Yoast released their now infamous update 7.0. This update would, for some reason, reset some settings which caused the rankings of many websites to drop basically overnight. Now, they did offer a warning and an explanation and an apology later, but that came 2 months after the update had been released. Too little, too late. From now on, Yoast was toast for me. So I set out to find a new SEO plugin, and at the time SEOPress was clearly an underdog to all of the previous plugins I've mentioned, and I was interested in what they had to offer. After all, it was them going up against the big boys, and after using it for just a short time, I could already tell that this plugin had so many more benefits compared to Yoast. SEOPress gets all the basics right. It will create titles and metas. It will create Twitter cards. It will integrate with Google Analytics. It will analyze your content, and the list goes on and on and on. Instead of just reading a list of things that SEOPress can do, I'm actually going to show you what it can do. Let's have a look. To get started, you want to install the SEOPress plugin just like you would any other WordPress plugin. And by the way, if you have been using Yoast or any other SEO plugin so far, SEOPress does offer a migration service. Once installed, we can take a look at the dashboard. Here you'll see a prompt to launch the installation wizard, and I highly recommend you do just that. Just go through each individual item and fill in the necessary information. Once you're done, you can click on Configure XML sitemaps to exit the wizard again. Here you can, if you so wish, change your sitemap, but I generally leave mine at the default settings. But there are some situations where you might want to make some adjustments, and you can read up on those in the SEOPress documentation. A sitemap is a small file that will provide Google and other search engines, of course, with information about your pages and files. It allows a search engine to better crawl your website, and the sitemap also includes information such as when a page was last updated, among others. We're going to ignore the sitemap for the moment and look at one of the other features SEOPress offers, and that is to integrate Google Analytics into your website without having to add any code. The first thing you want to do is register with Google Analytics and add a new account. Give your account a name and leave all the options enabled. Next, add your website name and the URL. Select a category. This setting doesn't have any influence on anything, so other will do just fine. And finally, set the correct time zone. Once you click create, you will be redirected to a page showing your tracking ID. Copy this ID and head back into SEOPress. Here you can select analytics from the menu and enter your ID. Also make sure you enable tracking or this whole process will have been pretty pointless. SEOPress has a neat feature to exclude user roles from the tracking, and I generally enable this because I don't want my visits to be tracked if I'm just testing new things out on my own website. And with that, we have Google Analytics already set up. Now, when it comes to tracking people online, us Europeans know there's something important to remember, and that is the dreaded GDPR. You can keep your opinion to yourself. I like my privacy and I'm all for it. Luckily for us, SEOPress is GDPR compatible. You can easily enable the option to have users opt in to having their visit tracked. Simply enable the option and write some text for your cookie bar and you're done. Obviously that doesn't cover everything. You will still need a privacy policy for your website, but I'm not going to go into that here. You can find plenty of resources online on how to write one of those. With that out of the way, we are going to take another look at our SEOPress dashboard. This is another thing I really like about SEOPress. It will actively give you tips on how to improve things. It is really very beginner friendly. So I'm going to go through these notifications one by one. The first and most important thing I picked up on was that my site was still hidden from search engines. I'd better fix that quickly. And next, it is telling me to hide my full posts from the RSS feed, so I'll make that adjustment too. The eagle-eyed among you will have seen that there's a notification asking me to give them a 5-star review, and further down the list there's also another notification asking me to give their pro version a try. Now this is something I complained about when I was talking about Yoast, but it doesn't bother me nearly as much with SEOPress for two reasons. A, these notifications only appear in the SEOPress dashboard and won't be seen anywhere else on your WordPress backend. And B, these notifications are easily dismissed and they don't try and hide the X button or anything like that. The next two notifications are irrelevant to me because I'm not displaying my posts using the default WordPress posts page. I'm doing it using WP Show Posts, and I also don't own a Google My Business account, so I'll just dismiss them. There's one last thing SEOPress is telling me to do, and that is to add my website to the Google Search Console. By clicking on that notification, it will take you to the Search Console where you can add a new property. The easiest way of doing things today is to verify the domain ownership via a DNS record. To do that, you simply have to add a text record to your DNS settings, and those are usually in the same place where you registered your domain. Once done, you have to wait a while and you can click on verify, and at this point you probably will get an error. But don't worry, this verification can take up to 24 hours, so just check in every couple of hours, try clicking verify again, and in at most one day it should be done. We can now return to SEOPress and copy the link to our sitemaps. Then return to the Google Search Console and manually add it under sitemaps. If you don't fancy doing this, the sitemap will be picked up automatically at some point, but this does speed up the process just a little bit. The Search Console does offer a few advantages when compared to Google Analytics. It does give you more information on how exactly people are finding your site on Google. To finish this off, I am going to show you how you can add your Google Search Console data into Google Analytics. Now, I have no idea why Google does it this way, but it's just the way it is, so we'll get on with it. To do this, you'll have to go back to your Search Console and add a new property. Then select the URL prefix option and enter your website's URL. The verification should happen automatically. Return to Google Analytics and enter the settings. From the property settings, select all products, scroll down and select Link Search Console. Clicking on Add will open a new window and you should be able to see the property you've just created. Click on Save and congratulations, you have just linked Analytics and Search Console. With the setup out of the way, how about we have a look at how SEOPress will help you produce more optimized content. Now just keep in mind, SEOPress hasn't got some magic formula that will make your content rank on Google. It will tell you what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong. It will give you suggestions on how you can improve, but it won't actively change anything. What you're looking at here is literally the Wikipedia article for landscape photography. I just copied this and put it in a post for use in this example. I also added an unnecessarily long title and a few of my own photos in between the text. If we scroll all the way down, you'll see that there's two new fields below the editor titled SEO and content analysis. And we can already see that SEOPress is telling me that my title is far too long for Google. By editing this field, I can change this. The title on my website will remain the same, but the title in the search result will be shortened. And the same goes for the meta description. And SEOPress will give you a nice little preview of how a search result will look like on Google. The advanced options can be left as they are. You could use these if you didn't want Google to scan this post or page, but that's not something I want to do here, so just move on. Under the social tab, you can set up your settings for Facebook and Twitter. By default, these will also use your post title and excerpt, but using SEOPress, you can change both of these things and the image. Onto the content analysis. This will help you write a more optimized text. By entering your desired keywords, SEOPress will scan through your text and see how many times that keyword is mentioned. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. As you can see, it is telling me to add an alternative text to my images and modify my headings. It appears to be rather happy with the amount of words in my text and the keyword density. That is how often the keyword is mentioned in the text. And with that out of the way, we've gone through just about all of the features the free version of SEOPress will offer you. To go back to the question I set out with, is it worth having an SEO plugin for a photography website? I think it is. SEOPress will automatically configure your sitemap, and it will also help you fill in details into the Google Knowledge Graph in case you are running a business, just to mention a few of the things it can do. SEOPress will also help you write more optimized content on your posts and pages, and that is essential if you want to rank for certain keywords. To sum it up, there are no downsides of using SEOPress, but there are great potential wins. Alright, that's just about enough from me for Monday. Help me out with a like if this video helped you out, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!